Hello, everybody. I am IO Chicago's creative director. I'm going to be here for how long are we doing this for? However long, 15, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, half hour. So if you have questions about the theater or the process for performing at IO or Chicago Improv or any of that stuff in general, I'm more than happy to try to answer those things. I can talk about other stuff too, interests that I have. So really, if you have anything out there, feel free to sort of throw it out. Was this my dream job? I would say yeah, for like the last maybe 5 years, this is like the culmination in some things, some cool stuff. Before I was here and sort of a while ago, I was running a place called the Upstairs Gallery in Andersonville here in Chicago, where a lot of really, really talented, funny people performed. So that place kind of, I had no aspirations towards producing comedy or sort of like working to create comedy communities before I started running that place with some good friends. And it really unlocked like my passion and like the sort of drive to do stuff. So this opportunity kind of presented itself last January, and I was like, yeah, I gotta go for it, you know. And it's quickly become a big obsession. What's the word with the new digital classes? Is there going to be a push toward YouTube sketch? Interesting. I don't think so. I think there's going to be an added focus on YouTube sketch and on digital sketch in general, just because as a medium it's so interesting and there's so much good work going on there right now. But I think IO's focus is always going to be on long-form improv. We're adding a video night. We already have been doing some stuff. I would say YouTube sketch has always been something IO has done. I think there are other theaters that do it way better than we do and have made it a much bigger priority, and we just want to make it a bigger priority. We're playing catch up in a lot of ways, but in more ways I think it's actually really exciting because we kind of missed out on like a lot of like the big YouTube sort of like stars, or like the big YouTube push, like maybe the last 10 years, and now we get to sort of like come into this thing and really look at what worked and what didn't and try to figure out what we want it to be. Key and Peele is a great example of folks who are doing really, really cool sketch stuff. Do I see myself as a performer or as a producer? I was actually just thinking about that. I am definitely a performer. That was my sort of way into improv, and I still really, really love improvising and improv in general, and that's you know, kind of my focus in my head. I still sort of see myself performing as much as possible. The reality is once you sort of take on like a producing role and sort of a creative directing role, you just have less time. You have to be really flexible to be able to see these shows and these ideas. And one of the things I really want to help IO do a better job of is being able to engage with ideas that are smaller in some ways and also need just maybe like one night. So, you know, if you do something like that, if you book a show like that that is just going to exist for one night, but maybe could exist as a recurring thing or a once a season thing, you'd need to be there the one night when it goes up at the theater that you help run, you know? So if you have a performance that night from your team, your commitment to your job and sort of to the creative health of the theater has to come first. In that way, you take the back seat from a performance career standpoint and you sort of put your professional career forward. So recently I was playing at the theater CIC for a very long time. Well, not as long as I wanted to. I was only there for 7 months, but I got added to an amazing team called Mad Contender. Just all incredible improvisers who are like my peers, but who I was like really intimidated to play with because they're all so good. I had never really got a chance to play with them before. And they just did this new thing where they did sort of a reorientation of the theater, and I decided it would make sense to step down. So hopefully sometime in the next 6 months to a year, I can sort of pick up performing some more. I'd love to put together a new independent team, you know, maybe write a show. But for right now, I think I have to really focus on this job and the creative direction thing. What else do you want IO to focus on as time goes on? Ooh, God, what an interesting question. I think as a theater, if any of you guys have been to the new space before, you know it's like massive. It's so big, and there's so much room in this building to exist in a way that the old space didn't really have. The old way was really kind of log jammed with talent in the space on Clark Street, where there was 2 stages, and you could sort of kind of get as much from that as possible. And then at this new space we have like tons of classrooms, 4 actual stages, 2 event spaces. So there can be comedy going on all the time. It's not that same sort of sense of exclusivity there was in the old space. And in fact, like one of the things that's interesting is sometimes it can be kind of detrimental to a newer show or to a hot show to put them in like one of these big theaters that we have here now, because they're really big rooms and they're hard to fill like on a Wednesday at 10:30. I totally lost my train of thought there. Question was, IO to focus on. So because of that, if you're an audience member coming here on a Tuesday night, it doesn't make sense for us to have 4 long-form shows. One of those slots should be given up to another sort of medium or art form in some way to bring people into the theater who might not have been exposed to it before, but also because we have this wonderful space that's dedicated to creativity and cool ideas and risks and failure, but also success. So it doesn't make sense for us to kind of hog it all to ourselves or to long form, especially if it's to the detriment of the community and the theater in general. So I'm really hoping that this place can become there's that idea in improv of like a place where you can fail and also succeed, and it's about both those things. And I want it to not be just for our performers to be able to do that across improv, but also be able to do that across all sorts of mediums, artistic mediums. We have some shows coming up here. There's a show called Omnibus. It's coming up on the website soon. It's 2 folks run it, Stephen Winchell and Sean Bowers, and they're amazing artists and sort of they do web comics and have done a lot of other cool stuff, and they're going to be hosting Omnibus, that's exactly right. It's going to go up in the Mission Theaters the 3rd Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. And it's going to be basically like an essay show and a PowerPoint show about comic books, which is something they're very, very passionate about. And it's different. It's weird. I hope some people who love comic books will come and check out the space and get involved in the community and see the scene and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm just really excited to give that platform to them to try something like that and see how they can do. They're both extremely talented dudes, and I think it's going to be a really, really cool show. So if you like it, maybe check it out. What's a typical day at the office like for you? Interesting. I am very, very lucky and not lucky. So back when I was running the gallery, I was living in the space as well. And I also had a 9-to-5 job, so I would be up until like midnight to 1 a.m. every night, and then at office by Spencer Blair is asking us to talk about Carly Rae Jepsen. I will talk about Carly Rae Jepsen later on. The new Carly Rae Jepsen CD is incredible. But as a result of sort of working the 9-to-5 and also being a performer and producer and like running that space, I was just like so tired all the time. I was exhausted. So this new job, what's really nice is I don't have to run the space. I don't have to open it. I don't have to be here all the time to actually like have it exist, which is different than what I was used to. So I can roll in here at like, anytime from 9 o'clock to 1 p.m. based on how late I stayed out the night before seeing shows or hanging out with people and stuff like that. So it makes a really, really big difference from a mental stability standpoint. I can have like, a morning to myself, which is like, so funny. I think a lot of improvisers could kind of relate that like getting that morning back is like really, really big. I have an hour to drink coffee and like read the newspaper, write some email. Do I see myself as a Chicago improv fashion mogul? That is from Max Lipschitz, who is on the team that I coach, Sherbert Boys, Herald team. I think I'm better dressed than probably 75% of the improv guys in the community, and I'll stand by that. There are days when I have off days or lazy days and stuff like that, but I think I'm a pretty snappy dresser in general, and I think all the hearts here will show that a lot of folks agree with me on that. To go back to the typical day, it's really a lot of emails, some meetings in person, some phone conversations, sort of just like getting the temperature of what's going on in the city. The nice thing about this job is that really my first priority is to make sure there are shows going up on all the theaters that are exciting. Tara saying, yay, Honnet. Thanks, Tara. That are exciting and like fun for the community and for us as people, but also just get a sense of what the vibe is and what people are excited about at other places in the community and what sort of the temperature is in general. So a lot of it is like having conversations with people about what they are doing at the theater, what they'd want to be doing, seeing younger performers who are maybe coming to their own and trying to figure out ways to create like support networks for them at IO so that they can have time performing here. I think a lot of times IO is the place you come when you've become good, and I'd like to figure out a way to get good playing at IO in a lot of ways, for not just folks on Herald teams. What was the most unexpected part of taking over this position? I would say Sharna has been incredible, and like she's really the reason I get to do this job. It's amazing. I am a paid creative professional, and like that's very rare in this world. Be able to do something like that, I'm extremely lucky and blessed. But having someone, and she very rarely says no to ideas I have or things like that. But having sort of this existing evergreen program and this legacy meant that when I came in, I couldn't really like do things right away that I wanted to. I had to be a little patient and get a sense of how things going. And with the gallery, it was really sort of our pure vision realized whenever we wanted it to be. So recognizing that as much as my job is to figure out what I want to see on these stages and see that go up in some ways, it's also really to figure out what's best for I.O. And trying to figure out how to make those lines as close as possible. Hey, Cam. This is super host Cam. How's your back feeling?
Good. Getting a little bit better every day.
There you go.
You know,
I missed it. Sorry. There it is. How did I get into improv? I did short form in high school, which was very, very fun. I was on a team called Children of the Candy Corn at Newton South High School, where I went to high school. It was great. There's actually a Newton South High School alumni here named Nate Gold, who I got into improv way back when, and now he plays on a Herald team here. And interestingly, he actually made a Herald team before me. So he's like 2 years younger than me. I'll never forgive him for it. But I had heard about long form out in Chicago, and I came and saw a show while I was looking at schools and saw Rattlesnake High School open for Baby Wants Candy at the old I.O. Downstairs cabaret space, and was like, oh my God, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. I want to do this. And I eventually did, you know. There was some sort of bumps along the way. I took classes in college and was not very good or very ready for it. And then afterwards, I sort of got out of a breakup with someone who had moved away and like did the I.O. thing and like really fell really hard for improv. And then the rest is sort of history, you know. Do you fear getting improv'd out, aka worn out? That's a real thing, and it exists, and you have to be careful about that. I periodically will sort of take little breaks from either seeing shows or doing shows, just because, like, it's important. You have to have a night off, you know. Chicago's incredible because there is so much stuff going on all the time, like, I mean, New York and LA are the same way. It's like those large market improv places. You can see improv and comedy every night of the week, you know, whatever happens. So you have to take those breaks. You just have to. That said, I feel like I have a much higher tolerance than some folks to getting improv'd out. I really like improv a lot. I am coaching 2 teams right now, and so those are always a blast. Thanks, Tara. The last question we saw before Tara gave me that nice shout out was, how do you overcome stage fright? And I would just say, just throw yourself at the stage as much as possible and do stuff. If we're talking about improv specifically, put together an indie team or get some friends together and find stages around the city and just keep on going up as much as possible. You'll be shocked at how much, like, just how better you get just from reps, from spending time on stages. It really makes a tremendous difference. Eventually you'll realize like you have this whole huge body of work to draw off of, and it's not like a big deal. Like getting up on stage is kind of the same thing as having a conversation in daily life or all those things. It's just getting used to it and flexing that muscle and seeing how that works. And it's a blast, you know, like why be afraid of something you're gonna do? What's your favorite stage outside of I.O.? Ooh, interesting, a political question. I don't have a favorite. I think that every stage in Chicago really fulfills like a very specific thing. Annoyance is incredible. They take like really cool risks. They have their own unique voice of the theater and like an improv style. You can see great stuff there all the time. There's not quite the same culture as improv there as there is at I.O., which is like I think a very major differentiator. I don't think they're as interested in seeing like a ton of improv there. You know, they want as much as they have right now, and it's great. But I think written work and produced work will always get the most stage time there, which is awesome. CIC, I think, in a lot of ways, like is like what IO maybe was back in the 90s, sort of in like the golden age of like Herald teams and stuff like that. They really focus on creating good large ensemble long form improv teams. They play Saturday nights at 10:30. All the teams there are amazing. You won't see a bad show from those guys. They just did this whole huge reorganization, so there's kind of this big sense of possibility in the air right now at that theater. You really don't know what's going to happen, but the teams they made are very, very cool, and I'm very excited to see what does happen. I'm really sad I'm not going to be playing there anymore. I'm going to miss a lot. Hopefully I can go back there down the line. The Playground was like the place I played besides the gallery the most my first years getting started here in Chicago. That place is so important and great and vibrant, and it seems like they're really trying to expand what is they're doing. They kind of got into like maybe a feedback loop for like 5 years in terms of like what was working and what they wanted to do with, and they're really shaking it up now, and I'm really, really excited to see how that keeps on changing. You know, it's not just an improv theater anymore. It's like a comedy theater and a theater. And those are probably the three I am most familiar with. What are your pros and cons of long form versus short form? Oh, geez, that's an interesting question. I don't really. Short form is like such a specific muscle to flex. Like it's about going out there and like attacking the game so quickly. It's not something I'm as interested in seeing a lot of the time, which is why I mostly focus on seeing or producing or doing long form. But you have a lot more breathing room in long form. You can sort of just like chill. Like if you have a bad scene, you can come back later on the show and like make it work in some way. You don't have to really put as much pressure on yourself versus short form where you have to go out there, and if you're not annihilating, like what are you doing? Like what's the even point to be performing? No one's there to watch the interesting choice or watch the callback sort of ripple through the theater like, with a large amount of emotional resonance. So I think for short form, you can actually take a lot from that when it comes to applying it to long form. But for me, long form is my first love and my passion. Oh, maybe not my first love. My first love is probably short form, but the sustained love is from long form. What was your most awkward moment on stage? I think, God, there have been I've done some really, really bad improv over the years and really bad stuff on stage. I can't believe I'm spacing on this. There's like, oh God. There was a show a couple years ago that we got to do at I.O. It was a run at the old space upstairs with myself and the rest of the folks on Pizza Party, DM&K, and the team Dead Money. And it's like two of my favorite improv teams filled with my favorite humans. Couldn't believe we got the run. It was incredible. The run was coming to an end, unfortunately, but we got one more day, and it happened to be April Fool's. So we decided to do this April Fool show called Improv Masters. We made up all of these fake old improvisers that were going to come back and like tell stories and do stuff at I.O. Like all these dumb, bad names for things like Rick Tackle and Steph Cook from Dead Money was called It's Pat, and she dressed like It's Pat. So the idea was we would all sit on stage and like do a living room, and then at the end we'd invite like the audience up stage, a couple people from the audience to do a herald and stuff like that, and we're just gonna talk about the old days. And right up to it, we all thought this was gonna be really fucking funny and like so great, and it was a blast. And then we got out there, and it was like, it's like the equivalent. The cast on that stage, I think, are some of the funniest people I know, and so good. And it was such a bad show. It was so bad. I can't communicate how bad it was to you. Like, to the point where afterwards we got off, and Steph Cook sort of walked into the room and goes, in costume, goes, "It's Pat died." Like, I don't know how it worked. It was a very, very bad show. We are all laughing about it now. At the time, I really thought like we had broken improv in some way, which, hey, that's another good thing about stage fright, guys. If you feel like, you're going to break improv or break yourself, you won't. It'll still keeps on existing. So what are the stakes? It's no big deal. How do you decide what to see around town? What are the things you're looking for? What do I want to see around town? I'll come see just about anything. I really don't have a personal barrier. Like if it's your Writing Six show, if it's your Skybox show, if you whatever you're doing anywhere, whatever level, I'll come see it. I think there is a big question in my mind of like, what is the purpose of me seeing the show? Do you think that it's ready to go up at I.O.? And if so, that's one way to pitch it to me. Or do you just want to get on my radar and start the conversation and invite me to come see things so I can get a sense of who you are as performers and just, really start the longer conversation of having a relationship with the theater in some way? And that second way is the way you should almost always approach pitching a show at I.O. unless you have a very specific idea and we know each other. Just because, if you imagine like the idea of like being in charge of like the steward of this thing and like you're going to put someone up you've never met before, like it's very rare that you do that. So the best thing I could recommend to do is like come to I.O., look around, see shows, get a sense of sort of what's going up in the theater right now, where your show would fit up in the grand sort of scheme of things there. And then once you have a pretty good idea of what you're hoping to get out of it or what you're hoping the message will be, like reach out to me then. But right now I'm looking for a lot of sketch and written stuff and variety. Things other than long-form improv. I want to see more long-form. I want us to have more forms here. I want to take more risks with that. But it does feel kind of like right now in Chicago there's this like incubation thing going on. A lot of like my favorite people of like the last maybe 4 or 5 years have left like in the last year. And we're kind of waiting to see like who the next people are going to be who are going to like pop off from an improv team perspective, which is kind of the thing I'm most interested in. Is I love long-form improv teams, but it takes them a while to grow an audience, and that's can be tough and trying to do sometimes. So while we are waiting for that to sort of incubate and happen, I'd love to use this time to sort of like focus on other mediums and other varieties and see what we can get up at I.O. Will you show us your favorite spot at I.O.? Okay, we're going to go do a little tour. My favorite spot at I.O. I don't know what it might be. We can just walk out onto the DCT really quickly. It looks like they're done with that meeting there. That's a pretty good place. It's a place where I have done some good shows and some bad shows. So here we are. We just walked out of the green room. It's the Del Close Theater. I've come to like this place a lot more than I used to. I did a really, really trash pizza party show there a couple years ago, opening for the Dirty Shame. Well, a couple years ago, a couple months ago. Thanks, Max. I'll be careful. Another great place at I.O. that people sort of come to sometimes is the Beer Garden out here. Some cool, badass music playing out here. Awesome. I can take you back. We'll go check out my office right now. I guess I spend a lot of time there. I like it a lot. If you follow me through the guts of the building. Play bags here, make friends. Yeah, outside is very, very nice. There's a lot of great stuff you can do there. All right, I'll come take a look out here. So we're going through now in the back room. Now in the office. Here I am. What's your take on the man bun? Hey man, you do your bun. You do you. That's the way I feel about it. Man bun feels like, I guess it's fun for them. It's a cool look. It's weird that it's as popular as it is. So here's my office. This is where it all goes down. All the fun stuff. Crumbs, water, all the stuff, the schedule over there. Some art on the walls, cowboy hat. Ooh, here's something. Jangleheart Circus, this is coming up next weekend, which is nuts. It's a festival that I produce with some friends, and it's a lot of work, and it's a blast, and it's coming up. We have some great friends coming in. Some old gallery stuff's going to come up, which I'm really excited about. And we'll see. I don't know. I hope it goes well. Go buy tickets to that if you're interested. We definitely could use the help. Here's a cool thing. Let's see if there's anyone in here right now. Oh man, that door's locked. Ugh. Hang on. We come around this way. So this is something. Oh, nope, sorry. This is something I want to show you guys. That was the team rehearsing in there right now. So that is the event space that I was just trying to get into. It's a new stage that Frank Layden built in here. Here we are at the bar. Pretty cool. Hey, no big deal. Box office area. So we're gonna have to be pretty quiet in here for a second, but. So it's like a cool little place where you could do like readings or stand-up comedy or something like that. Improv sort of works in here. It can be a little rough sometimes, especially without a piano. But the idea behind that place is so that, you know, check out how that's going. Yeah. So that's sort of it in terms of like the scope around the theater and stuff like that. There's some really cool stuff upstairs too. Maybe I'll show that to you guys another time. The guided tour portion. Coming back in here right now. Do you guys have any other questions for me? Anything you want to talk about? Know about I.O.? Oh, well, no worries at all. I think that's probably a good place to call it. We've been going for what, like 20 minutes? Great. Well, this has been Alex Honnet, the creative director of I.O., doing my first ever Periscope. I hope it was fun for you guys. I had a really good time. And we'll do this again sometime. Bye-bye.